Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming into the webinar. I think everyone who's logged in, it's 2 minutes past 10, has logged in. I'm sure more people will join as we come. So it's Ken Byrne here from Virtual Cabinet. I'm one of the account managers, and I'm going to run through how GDPR and Virtual Cabinet can help you. Now, if you have, everyone is on mute, and I'm going to have to remain that way because there's quite a lot of people on this webinar. If you have any questions all the way through, there is a question button. If you write the question on there, I'll stop periodically and have a look, and I'll see if I can answer everything, etc. Also, if there is anything that's of interest to you, there's a couple of things you can do. You can email me at the end, or even through the question button, just put, if I mention something like portal, or there's something that you're interested in, just click portal in the question and we'll know that you're interested in it. We'll come back to you afterwards. I would just ask that there is a little bit of patience for people coming back to you, just purely because of the volume and the interest that's on this, and we're just putting stuff in place in the background to be able to come back to you, but it will take us a little bit of time. But we know you're all out there. We all know you're hungry for information. And then the final bit to say is that this probably is what I'd call phase. This is what I'd call phase one of GDPR compliance. So this is basically getting you to a stage of where you can tick kind of the highlight boxes, etc. I'm sure as we go forward, we're learning as an organization. I guess you guys are learning too, that further on there will be other things that we can do and need to implement. But let's go for it now. Oh, the last thing, sorry about this. The last thing is, at some stage, can you all please check what version of Virtual Cabinet you're on? Most of the stuff that I'm talking about, you need to be on 3.3. We've just released 3.5. So you do need to get onto the latest version of Virtual Cabinet. You can do that yourselves, or you can contact our support and we'll do it for you within office hours. But there are a few bits and pieces that I talk about later on that are only available from, well, I think it's from 3.2, but you need to get really on the latest versions to be able to grab everything. Okay, so that's kind of all the bits and pieces that we've talked about. And I want to get started. Just to say that I'm not an expert in GDPR. I don't know if there is anyone that's a fully expert in GDPR, but what I can say is that if you've got Virtual Cabinet and you're using a secure way to communicate with clients, hopefully you're using our portal, you're a long way to becoming GDPR compliant, or at least ticking a lot of the boxes. Okay, so let's go to the first slide. So this really is just a kind of a graph or a survey done by the data compliance doctor. You were allowed to take more than one question just to kind of show you what's happening out there, to show you what's happening with GDPR and where you are. It kind of just shows that everyone is still finding their feet and no one's saying, actually, yes, we're 100% GDPR ready. So hopefully you've all at this stage downloaded our ebook. The probably most important page in it, in my opinion, is this page, which kind of covers the steps you need to take to become GDPR compliant. Just want to say here, and probably everyone knows this, but it's not software that makes you compliant. It's businesses and processes that make you compliant. But as I said, our software can assist greatly in helping you to comply. Some of these points are relatively obvious, so I will skip over them. If you see something that you want me to spend a bit more time on, just in the chat box or in a question, just write it and say, actually, can you spend a bit more time or explain a bit further? If there's a lot of people requesting that, I'll go back and do it. If not, I'm afraid we'll have to go back afterwards and discuss it as well. Okay. Virtual Cabinet, we've always been about efficiency. We've always tried, to encourage our clients to get the documents into Virtual Cabinet as quickly as possible. So you can obviously find the document, you can share it, etc. So most of what I've covered is already kind of there for you guys in it. But we have developed some automated or semi-automated solutions and issues thrown up by GDPR. So I'll try and talk and mention that all the way through. Just to prove that I am watching the questions, someone has asked, will I be sending a copy of this presentation through? It will be, it's not this particular presentation, but we do have a document that basically covers these 12 points of GDPR and how Virtual Cabinet can help. So I will be sending that. My colleague George actually just finalized it yesterday or the day before. So I'll send that through to everyone after this presentation. So yeah, basically it is the same presentation, but just in a slightly different format. Thanks for the questions on chat, by the way. It actually means there's people out there listening as well, so I do actually like them. It does make me pause every now and then to make sure I'm following it, but yeah, please do. Okay, so audit trail. I'm not going to spend too much time on the audit trail because, as you know, every document, everything that you do inside Virtual Cabinet, there's a full audit trail behind it. But one of the things, if you look at that statistic from the IT Pro portal on the left-hand side, they surveyed 500 IT leaders, and only 46% were confident they could precisely identify, where the data had been exposed in a breach. So one of the things I am going to talk a little bit about is our portal and how it's integrated into Virtual Cabinet, and you've got the full audit trail all the way through of who's published what to whom, what document is gone, and your retraction, etc. This GDPR and Virtual Cabinet presentation is not focused on the portal. So if you do want to have a look at our portal, if there's enough of a demand, I will do a separate set of webinars specifically on how our portal works. We normally do a live portal demo, and I do that individually to clients because there's lots of back and forwards with questions. But if you do want to see that, if you want to put it in the chat or put in a question, just put the word portal, then I will happily cover that on a different day. So automated archiving. So there's two parts to this. I'm just going to jump back to the previous slide. So if you see automated archiving, and you also see, and I have to find where it is written on here, and document retention, these two are quite closely linked. Let's go back to the slide I'm on. So automated archiving means that we can actually, and this is something we're starting to do with more and more clients, is we're starting to look at people's virtual cabinets, and let's say I can't think of a better phrase, but they're full of documentation, especially clients with us a long time. They've got 10, 15 years worth of data there. What we're doing is we're taking some of the older data and saying, well, let's put it into a semi-archive cabinet. I've never liked that phrase, but that's the phrase we use. So a semi-archive cabinet. So when you do a search, you return just the last 2 years worth of the client's documentation, for sake of example. And then if you don't find the documentation there, you go back to the older ones. So it kind of speeds up and just makes everything a little bit neater. So we are doing that, by the way. If you're interested in that, do let us know. Sorry, someone has asked where you get a copy of our ebook. If you jump onto our website, it's actually, as soon as you jump onto our website, there's a little pop-up comes saying, oh, do you want to have a look at our ebook? So if you do that later on and download it, if you have a trouble, I've had one client in all the time we had it on offer, as said they couldn't download it for some reason, so we can email it to you as well. So either or, it doesn't matter. Okay, so the automated archiving I've just mentioned. So things you need to review is the integration to your practice management system. Now, pretty much every single Virtual Cabinet user is also looking at some kind of integration to the practice management system, which is fine. But don't forget, most clients, especially if you get over 10 plus users, have more than one area that they generate documentation or have client information. So the best example I can always use is you may have a practice management system to run your business, but maybe your accounts department uses Sage to send your invoicing to clients. Well, we can integrate with Sage. In fact, Virtual Cabinet can have multiple integrations to multiple different practice management systems or other systems. So it's well worth looking. So Virtual Cabinet at its core is always focused on the one thing, which is all your documentation to do with anything with clients is kept in the one place. And that for all the rest of the GDPR stuff that I'm about to talk about flows on from there. I've kind of got myself bogged down. This is only the second slide, so I'm going to just speed up a little bit as well. So the second point, the centralized data, is just what I was talking about. Sometimes we call it one source of truth. Where is all your data? Now, I know a lot of clients have become basically paperless, or as paperless as you can or you want to be as an organization. But I constantly, we as account managers, we constantly go to clients. We say, "Oh, where's all your data held?" And they say, "Oh, well, we have, all our documentation in virtual cabinet." But also we do keep some paper files and we keep them over there. Oh, and also people keep emails in their folders on the left-hand side of Outlook. Oh, and we have an S drive, a V drive, a Q drive, a Z drive, where people also store some other stuff. And then slowly, over time, all those places become places where you've got data. So one of the things you need to look at as an organization, we can assist you with this in somewhat, is where is your data and where do you want to do it? Obviously, when you're a new client, we come in and we'll say, let's take your data from your S drive or V drive if you've just been using a Windows folder structure, and let's import all that into virtual cabinet. We may need to do that again. You may need to clean up your practices. If you need to do it again, talk to us and let us know. I was with a client last week, myself and Sebastian went to a client last week, and we gave up counting at 9 for places he kept data. So it is kind of, we said, well, what happens with a subject access request? What happens if someone says, the right to be forgotten, which I'll cover a little bit later? You've got to know where your data is. So you've got to know where your data is so you can control it, etc. So do have a look at that. So the right to be forgotten. I am covering this a little bit further in 2 slides' time. And this right to be forgotten is written into GDPR. It's really more focused on the marketing companies. To use my own personal example, I cannot get off Virgin Media's mailing list. I rang them. I have got onto their website and asked to be knocked off it, and yet I still get 2 letters a week asking to be a Virgin Media customer. So with GDPR, if I write to them and ask them in a reasonable time frame, can I please, remove me from your database? They need to do that, and obviously they need to sharpen up their practice. For us with virtual cabinet, we think, well, it's not that important, but actually, it is, because if you have a client or you have an ex-client and they say, "Oh, dear Mr. Virtual Cabinet user, whoever you are out there, can you please remove all my details from your organization, the right to be forgotten?" If you legally have to hold on to a document, that's okay. But if you've got no legal reason to hold on to the document, you then have to not just delete it, but destroy it. Okay, so that right to be forgotten actually can hit at the core of your organization. And I was chatting to a client a couple of weeks ago, and they had basically a subject access request, and it took them 2 weeks to pull all the information together. Now, the guy said he wasn't spending his whole time on it; he was doing it bits and pieces over time, but he reckoned about 2 days. That is a long time to spend. If the documents are in virtual cabinet, you can do one click, find Joe Blogs, highlight all the documents. If you don't need to keep them, you can hit delete, and there's a destroy function in virtual cabinet, which I'll talk about in a little while. The document retention policy is, again, something that we never really discussed with clients. It's something that really wasn't high on the agenda, but basically we can apply your document retention policies inside virtual cabinet. So on a very simplistic level, accountants especially, is relatively easy. It's 6 years plus the current tax year, so it's 7 years. So we can apply, look at all documents over 7 years old. That would run, for instance, every night, and we'll put them into ready to be deleted folder. The admin or whoever would go in on probably on a weekly basis, look at all the documents, make sure they're okay, hit delete. You then go and highlight all the deleted ones, and there's a destroy function, which I'll talk about the next slide, which removes not only the documents themselves, but the audit trail, and removes them off the server. So that's a simplistic view, but we can set document retention policies that work inside virtual cabinet. So if you look at right from the start, virtual cabinet is a place to keep all your documentation. Secondly, we can then, we know where your documents are. We can then apply archiving to keep your searches and everything neatly. And then thirdly, we can look at it and say, actually, in terms of tell me your document retention policy, and we'll put that in place. Now, I used a very simple example just on date. Obviously, some clients out there may be certain documents that you never want to delete, or you need to keep forever. Again, we can put, if you can put a tag, if you can identify them, we can put a tag on them, an index profile called permanent, for instance, and no permanent documents ever get moved in the to be deleted, to be destroyed archive. If you have various different parts to your business, and each of those parts of the business have different document retention policies. As long as you can identify them to us, we can apply that retention policy to various different bits. So we can either set up a completely separate cabinet for people, or we can just look at different document types. So you say, actually, these document types or these type of clients have a retention policy of we keep the documents forever. These type of clients retention policy, we can delete and destroy them. This client, if you, for instance, is you turn a client from a client to an ex-client in your practice management system, we can reflect that back in virtual cabinet and re-index the documents to the new code or whatever, so they're an ex-client. And actually, you might say, well, I only need to keep those documents for a year. So whatever you can focus on, and as long as you can identify it, we can apply a document retention policy to it. So we can automate that process. As one of my colleagues said to me, one of my customers said to me the day, he said, "Oh, we can do all that manually." I said, "Well, yes, of course you can do it all manually. There's absolutely no problem to do that. But again, we're about efficiency, and if you want to have that efficient system in place, you can do it. And one of those 12 bullet points on GDPR compliance is security, etc. from the start, and you can demonstrate to someone, to the ICO or to an auditor, that actually you've got all this in place. You're handling all the way through. Okay, probably spending too much time on each of these slides. This is only supposed to be an hour. Every statistic I've got on here, I've put a note on to say that where I've got it from. I forgot to put it on these ones, and these are from the GDPR coalition, and any of the color slides, these nice color slides that you see here, are from those. So this is kind of just covering the document retention policy that I talked about, etc. Under the GDPR rights, you've got data portability. So someone can say, can I have all my documentation, etc., and can I move it? Well, Virtual Cabinet keeps all the documents in their native format, Word, Excel, etc., etc. So that means you keep it in a commonly used format, which is good. Access, so anyone can write to you and say, what data do you hold on me? And you have to tell them what data you hold on them. Correction is a simple one. If you've made a mistake in names, etc., again, that's more focused towards the mass marketing type people. Erasure, not the band from the 1980s, is also about actually removing the documents as well. So I will talk about destroy. I think it's in the next slide or the slide after. So I will talk about that in a second. And then consent. Now I know this is causing us all a headache, and I am not a GDPR expert. Before I say the next thing, just so you're aware. So consent means you must, in clear and plain language, say if a client allows you to use their data. Now, if you're, again, I'm going to use an accountant or a financial service, if a client has employed you to do that, then that's, I think it's perfectly reasonable for you to be able to discuss and talk to them about that subject. The trouble is, if you've got a mortgage arm, a financial services arm, a loan arm, or whatever, and you pass those clients' details across to the other arm of your business and you haven't got consent, that's where your consent falls down, okay? On this part, and this is sorry, I'm just reading some of the questions. I'm gonna come back to this point. I'm gonna restart it again on this consent. On the consent, is causing people a lot of problems, because basically you have to write to your entire client base and in very clear language say, do you consent for us to send you marketing details, etc., etc. We can automate that process if you're using our portal. So we can take and I will mention this later on again, and I'm only picking 1,000 as it's just a nice number to use, but it's any number. So we can take one document and send it to 1,000 clients. We can also take 1,000 individual documents and send them to 1,000 individual clients, or anywhere in between. You would literally create the document, you would drop it to a place in your server, and then we could take that, automatically index it into Virtual Cabinet against the client name, and automatically publish it to the portal. We can also automatically ask for a signature, and we also automatically can put a note on there. So we can automate that whole process of sending out all those documents to your clients as well. I've just had a quick glance at some of the questions in there, and I will, sorry, I just need to find where my mouse is. I'm not going to be able to answer some of the questions that have come in, so apologies to some of those people that have asked specific questions. I will answer them afterwards. So I kind of mentioned some of the ways people can access their data, and one of the other things we've talked about is right to be forgotten. Okay, and the document retention policy. It's just an interesting statistic there from the IT Pro portal. They said 7% of UK adults said they would submit a subject access request. So it really have to understand, you know, this could actually happen. So one of the reasons I mentioned 3.3 or 3.5 in terms of version at the start of this webinar is because I think it was in 3.2, but it doesn't really matter. I keep saying numbers, it doesn't really matter. We put a destroy function into Virtual Cabinet. So what that destroy function does, so what delete does, including on your Windows folder, including on your phones, by the way, delete does not remove the document. It only removes the path to the document. The document will be overwritten, sorry, the place where the document was will be overwritten eventually and will remove that document, but it can be recovered. I've come from a security background, by the way, so I do know a hell of a lot about this. I don't want to get into it, but I'm hoping a lot of you are old enough to remember the old carbon sheets. So when you'd put a piece of paper down, you'd put a carbon underneath that, and a carbon underneath that, and you'd write it. Well, if you think about deleting a document, and even deleting it, so you delete it off the database where it was, it's like this carbon copy. You're removing the top layer, but you can actually see a copy of the document underneath. And even if you go to the second layer or the third layer, there's still a shadow of the document there. So they reckon it used to be about 7 times, but now it's down to about 3 times that place where that document was saved has to be overwritten and before that document disappears. So deleting does not delete it. What destroy does is destroy, it goes into your database, removes all traces of the document, and it removes the audit trail and everything else as well. That is there ready and to be turned on inside your Virtual Cabinet now if you're on the latest version. I will say the process to do it is a little bit, probably clunky is the best word. It is involved. I actually like it because once you hit to destroy, the document is destroyed, so you can't do it. The process is relatively simple. You delete a whole lot of documents. You then go to recently deleted. You highlight them all and you hit destroy, and then Virtual Cabinet says, are you sure you want to destroy? You click yes, and then those documents are gone, and the path is, the audit trail and everything is gone as well. So that's built in there, really, really strong for your GDPR compliance, because you can actually, if someone says, I want you to erase the documents, you're actually erasing them as well. Oops. There we go. So this is another GDPR Co-Alliance document. So this is really talking about your management activities, the things you need to take and do in order to be able to part of GDPR compliance. As I said, we need to map and see where all the documents are. And we'll talk about privacy policies in just another slide as well. The track is your audit trail, and you've got your audit trail anyway, so you can see what's happened to the document, what's moved, etc., etc. And let me just check what the next slide is, because I think I could cover it. I do. So the principle, I corrected that this morning. It should be principle of least privilege, and it's principle of least privileged. I thought I corrected that, but obviously I missed it. So in Virtual Cabinet, there are a couple of basic ways and then an advanced way to keep security. So obviously one of the basic ways is by user. So if I'm a very junior person, you might allow me to view documents, you might allow me to edit documents, but you won't allow me to email them or delete them or destroy them, etc. And then you've got the various levels of security on. In other circumstances, you may have separate cabinets. So I've got access to just one cabinet, and a certain group of people have an access to another cabinet. The best example I always use is if you happen to use Virtual Cabinet to store your HR documents, only HR and managers will be able to see inside that document, inside that cabinet. Or you can have it half open, half closed. You've got an open part where people can see the employee handbook and the holiday form and etc., etc. And then there's a closed part where you'd have your appraisals and contracts, etc., etc. There is another function. It's called security profiles, and there is another function inside Virtual Cabinet, and I think I just called it security profiles. And what the best example to use that is my example of using, let's say you're doing some financial work, or you're doing the accounts of Simon Cowell. It's the Simon Cowell principle. Do you want everyone in the organization to be able to see all his documents? The answer is no. Do you want even just the managers or the administrators? No. So what we can do is we can put a security profile on at the start of when you index that document in, only certain people in the organization can see it. So there's a higher level of security able to do that. So if you have a particularly sensitive client, or you've got particularly sensitive data for some reason or other, you can actually have another layer of security on it as well. Again, if you're interested in this called security profiles, just drop us a note. So the other two points on this slide follow on from there: the need to know basis of who needs to know what, etc. Again, on GDPR, this is really focused more towards the pharmaceutical industry and I can never say it, but making data anonymous. You know the word I'm trying to say, but I can't say it. So it's that, but again, you have to take an account of that as a client who handles data. And then privacy by design is exactly what I've just talked about. When that document hits your organization and it goes to the virtual cabinet, you've got your privacy policy set up all the way through to that document's destruction. Okay, so I just took a little pause there to take a breath. I am going to answer one or two of the questions that come in, not by many. It was down to, it's very obvious that there's a cost to using our portal and we have an extra licensing, etc. So I get everyone understands that. A couple of people have said, oh, why is there a cost to some of the other things that I've discussed? It's purely down to engineering time. We need to get the engineer to look at it and do it. And it's not a commoditized product. It's not something we just turn on or off. We have to consult with you. We have to understand how you want to do it. And the trouble, the benefit of virtual cabinet is it's very uniquely set up in every single organization, and it's basically still the same. You can still search, you can still index, etc. But all the integrations and all the stuff, the way people use it is relatively unique. So I go to pretty much any client I go to, I recognize virtual cabinet, I can see it, I can do all the searching, but actually how they use it is very different in every organization. So we do need to consult with you and look at that. So that is why there is a cost to it. And as I said, most of the stuff that I've talked about right now, you can do yourself, but it's a manual process, and we can just automate that process for you. And it is a cost-benefit analysis. If you're a smallish client and you're going, well, actually, the cost to me by doing that process every week or every month or whatever is fine. I'll just do it myself. Absolutely fine, no problem. But if you're a company, you're saying, actually, my chargeable time is high, therefore it's better to automate it when it come and speak to us. And after this, any questions, etc., we'll pass on to the individual account managers. We will come back to you individually, and we can talk about what you want and what you don't want. Sorry, got kind of bogged down again. Secure portal. So a lot of people have written portal, which is great. So I will set another set of webinars specifically on the portal. Apologies for those who have it. I'm just going to mention briefly what it does, and I'm going to show you some of the new features on the very latest one. Some of the features you're going to show you won't have access to because it's on the next version of Virtual Cabinet that hasn't been released yet. It's about to be released in a couple of weeks, but I just thought I'd show you. So at its core, our portal does three things. It allows you to send documents securely to clients. It allows you to send documents securely to clients and obtain an electronic signature, and it allows your clients to send documents back to you. Okay, it's fully integrated into Virtual Cabinet, and it's fully integrated into Virtual Cabinet, and all the audit trail and everything else goes back in. What is very nice about it is that when you send the document out to the client that comes back, we retain all that indexing information, so it's one click to save the document as well. The other thing that we've done is we've focused very strongly on the client experience. You guys know as well as I do, if the experience is rubbish, if the client has to go somewhere and put in a code and find another code and go back to somewhere else or do something else, it's a pain and they don't want to do it. So we've focused on the client experience to make it as simple and easy as possible. And then for us, for a Virtual Cabinet user, the portal handles all the downstream effort that you don't have to handle. So if you have a client and you haven't spoken to them and you haven't said that you've got a portal, You just publish a document to them. Once that happens to the portal then contacts your client and says, "Oh, hi, Ken Byrne from Virtual Cabinet has sent you a document. Please click on the link." They click on the link. The portal helps them set up a password. The portal manages that password for them, and it manages their entry into it. So for you literally just publish a document, and all the reminders, all the setting up of an account, all the reminders, all that further downstream communication is handled by the portal. So it takes away another admin task from you. Not sure. This screenshot here is the latest version of the portal. There's a few things. Oh, you can see my mouse, which is great. There's a few things that I wanted to show you. I'll show you the big. This is again directly back from client feedback from guys like yourselves who are saying, actually, can we make this screen view a little bit bigger and a little bit clearer in the portal? And we're like, well, why? Well, obviously you grab the document Virtual Cabinet, maybe you grab one document or 3 documents, you publish to the client, and you want to do your final check that it's the right document, it's got the right number on or whatever. So we've increased that size so you can do that right here in the portal. We've got remember message, which means if you're sending out a lot of the same stuff, the same message pops up there as well. We've got this automatically retract feature on there, but a lot of people haven't got it switched on. I don't think you're aware that it's actually there, which means there's a global setting in the portal which you can set and say, right, I want to retract all documents in the portal in 3 months or 6 months or whatever, which is fine. That's your global setting. On an individual user, you can set an optional one. So if I'm publishing a document to a client and I know they're going to sign it and straight away, I'll override that and say 2 weeks because I know it's going to be signed within a day or 2. That's fine. On the other side of that, if I know a client's setting up a new business and he's going to come back to that document and he's not quite sure when he's going to sign it, I might put that at a year, or I might put that at never. And the new portal on that automatically retract documents, it goes from never, 1 week, 2 weeks, all the way up to 7 years. So you can actually kind of set your document retention policy in the portal if you want on the fly. On the top is probably another part as well. Now, again, I'm not saying we can 100% do this for every single client. So please take this with a pinch of salt until we have a look at your system. But what we can do is we know where the document's coming from. So we're taking the document from Joe Smith. So Joe Smith client, and the user is Frank Smith, so Joe Smith Limited. We grab the document from there. We can only return, if you like, the email addresses from that client, from Joe Smith Limited client, so not every single email in the world. So if your practice management system has the ability to do that, we can reflect that in the portal. Again, just helping you a little bit in not sending the wrong document to the wrong client. The bits I haven't shown here, which are the other bits in the portal, is there's a full, really, really strong reporting, so you can see who's published what to whom, when the clients viewed it, if the client signed it, what documents are looked at. It's really, really powerful. So while I'll say our portal is very good in terms of grabbing documents, sending to clients, its client experience is really good. The reporting side is very, very strong as well. Okay, there's loads of people saying portal. I will definitely do a separate webinars on the portal. I just wanted to mention a few of those little bits and pieces. And again, I think this internal process is probably worthy of a completely separate set of webinars as well. Stop! Can everyone stop writing portal? No, please. If you are interested in the portal, please write portal, and we'll go from there. Everyone's using the chat, which is brilliant. We have had inside Virtual Cabinet for quite a long time, we call it tasks, but it's a workflow module. So what that workflow module allows you to do is allows you to take a manual or a physical process and put it inside Virtual Cabinet. Why would you want to do that? I always use the very simple example of a document approval. I'm a junior person, I'm writing a letter, and I want my senior manager to make sure it's all right before I send it out to the client. Well, you might do that now by taking the document, emailing it back and forward between each other, printing it out and writing on it. Don't make me cry, but some people do that. Until it's right, and then we send it off to the client. You can make that process inside Virtual Cabinet. Now, again, if you're a small user, if you're 6-8 people go, well, I don't need to do that. And I go, yep, that's absolutely fine. But if you're a larger organization, you want to be able to control that process and see what's happening. That's a very simple example. Let's go to the really complicated example. And this is where everyone's, I know I catch a lot of people's attention when I say client onboarding and client leaving our ex-client process. I bet everyone listening to me here has a very long tick sheet that they fill in manually, and they say client onboarding, who's done the proof of ID, who's done the anti-money laundering, etc., 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 and they tick it all the way down. Why not take that process and put it inside Virtual Cabinet, put timeframes on what people can and can't do, have a full audit trail of who's done what, and as you move through that process, you can also, as you move through that process, you can also see where you are in that process. So if I look at any new client onboarding, I can say, oh, look, we're nearly completed the process, or we haven't finished the process. Also with that, I can also look at see who's got what. So my colleague Sophie might be absolutely swamped with work, and I'll say, okay, great, let's take some work off her and put it onto someone else, so you can manage all that process through. Why have I spent all that time talking about this? Workflows and tasks can streamline your documents and business processes, and that's what it's there for. What's happening is the feedback we're getting from our clients is actually it can be used for a whole set of other things, especially around GDPR. So for instance, if you have to send out your updated employee handbook to all your employees, how do you do it, and how do you prove that you've done it? Well, actually, you could use the portal, for instance, to send it to everyone, or you could use a workflow task to do it as well. If you have a whole lot of employees and they have to do 5 things to comply with GDPR, go on a course, sign a document, etc., etc., why not make that into a task and send it around to all your employees, and you've got a full audit trail and proof of what you've done? So if that's kind of starting to ring a bell with you of certain things you can do, we call it tasks. Again, stick tasks into the chat, and we'll make a note, and we'll come back and talk to you about it. The other bit on that is you may want to send every single one of your clients an email and saying, or sorry, not an email, you can't send them an email. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. You may want to get all your clients to sign a document to say, yes, please, can we still communicate with you according to the I forgot what the phrase is, but allowing you to talk to them. You can do that through the portal as well. So and again, we can do it through a task. So I could say, hey Sophie, can you please write to all our clients and do it? And I could set that task up. She would then go and use the portal to send out to all our clients, as we can mass publish the portal now as well. We can set up and get that going for you, and then she will complete the task. We've got a full audit trail, start to finish of who did what process when, etc., etc. So just have a think about that. There's a lot of interest on that. We've got a lot of ideas internally in the organization, and I'll put my hand up here. I don't think Virtual Cabinet as an organization did a particularly good job of communicating to clients how this worked. We had some free small little mini task modules. We gave them out to people, and I'm still happy to do that as well. But what most people do is have a play with them and go, well, they're a bit complicated to set up and it doesn't really work very well, and I'll just carry on doing what I'm doing because I'm too busy. And I think that was kind of a mistake on our part. We needed to consult a little bit more. We need to have a little bit more focused. And actually, to going back to a few people who were asking about, why there's a cost. This is something we can probably commoditize and make much more cost effective, because if we do it a lot of times with a lot of people, yes, we'll have to modify it for each individual organization, because each individual organization will have a different requirement. But if the core structure is already built, that saves us a lot of time. So again, if you're interested, people are writing tasks, etc., I think I'm going to have to do a separate webinar on that. You're keeping me busy, I guess, but never mind. I have no idea why I put the picture of the latest version of Virtual Cabinet on there, but you know something? There it is. So that's what you will be seeing now. And we do have the new Discover tab. And again, this is a discussion on GDPR and Virtual Cabinet. But I just wanted to say the new Discover tab is our first iteration of it. But what it will be a go-to place for people to find more and more information on Virtual Cabinet. What's on the latest version, what's coming on the next version, a way to feedback information to us, but also the how-to guides. We're going to build more and more little YouTube videos, etc., to allow people to say, oh, actually, I'm not very clear. the portal was put in a while ago. I'm not very clear how to do it. Let's go to the Discover tab and it'll show you how to do it. Or alternatively, a client rings up and says, oh, I'm having trouble logging onto the portal. I forgot my password. What do I do? You can go into the YouTube video and it guides you through what to tell the client and what the client experience will be, and searching, indexing, documents, scanning, etc., etc. So that's going to build over time. And again, it's from our client feedback. We'll talk to you. You tell us. I've already had some really, really good quality feedback on that, and we've passed it on to the development team, and we will build that in accordance to what you want. So I think that's why I put that there, but I'm not really sure. I'm kind of coming to the end of this GDPR webinar. I must have sped up faster than I thought because I thought I was getting bogged down earlier on. So I'm just going to jump to the next slide quickly, and then I'm going to go back to this slide. So I've hopefully covered the 12 points on this webinar, and I will come back to this slide in a second. So here's kind of the processes from here. So some people may be out there, some clients may be out there, and you may be saying, yes, we've got everything covered on the 12 points listed. You're absolutely happy, bit of a smug face, or off you go. And actually, I have spoken to a few clients, and the positive thing is some of my clients have said, actually, we're almost there. We're quite happy with what we've done. And as I said, I believe everything I've talked about now is phase one. Okay, so phase one is really getting ourselves organized, getting ourselves, where our documentation, how are we communicating with clients, how are we going to handle the subject access requests and the permissions, etc., etc. I think that's phase one. We had a discussion internally here last Friday, and we kind of shared our GDPR knowledge, and we all said, all of a sudden say, oh, okay, and there is a second phase to this as well, but this is phase one. I think we've got a lot of things covered. So the second bit might be, we have most things covered. We need some support to set up some of the automated features that I talked about. You're writing that in the chat. We will come back to you, etc., and we will discuss that with you as well. Not a problem. The third one is actually clients are saying, we've got a lot of documentation in a lot of different places. You're not using virtual cabinet, etc. Again, we can come and we can help you with that as well. So those first 3 points, let's say we can handle those inside virtual cabinet. We can handle those from an account management point of view, maybe from an engineering point of view, etc. The last bit, if you're genuinely struggling, if none of this has made sense to you, or if none of this you think, we're not here, we have actually got the ability. We've employed an outside company, and we know them particularly well, and we can recommend for them to come in to you. You don't have to use them. Obviously, you can go and find your own ones as well, but if you want us to do that as well, they will come in. They're really, really good. They have the same ethos as us, is that they're about efficiency. They will come in, they will review where you are and give you a full gap analysis. They're not one of these clients who will give you a little bit of information and then you have to employ them to come back and give them another bit of information and come back and give you another bit, and it becomes like a drag of your resources. What they'll do is they'll come in, they'll do a gap analysis, they leave it with you, and they will prioritize it and say, look, here are the steps you need to take to become GDPR compliant, and this is what you need to do, and here's how to do it, and they'll go away. So if you are in that last final category, please just contact us, and we'll put you in touch with that company. Again, a lot of people out there are doing it as well. What I kind of tried to say at the start, and I don't know if I got to say it correctly, but I want to say it now, is if you've got virtual cabinet and you have our secure portal, I believe you're strongly on the road to being GDPR compliant, because you've got all the stuff there. And I think from seeing, I've been out to see a lot of clients, and this obviously is making us very, very busy at the moment. And most clients, I've said to them, there's a lot of panic and a lot of, worry out there. I think you're relatively sorted. Most clients have said to me, oh, actually, there are bits we need to improve. There's bits that we've never addressed. There are things we need to do. They can either do it themselves, or they can use us or some of the automation we can do to help them as well. So I am going to come to the next slide. Whoops. So hopefully I've covered all of these 12 points, okay? And I've covered how you can do them inside virtual cabinet. Of course, it's not a perfect world out there. Of course, you can use other bits of systems and an organization, but we are from virtual cabinet, so we are going to talk about virtual cabinet. The subject access request. So if one of your clients writes to you and says, what information have you got hold of me? Can you share that information with me? And can you destroy that information as well. So the right to be forgotten. That's covered if you use Virtual Cabinet as a central store of your data quite easily. You grab all the documents, say yes, here's all the information we have in you. Yes, we can share it with you. We can extract it, put it on a hard drive, or send it to them in the portal. And the final bit is you can say to them, actually, according to our document retention policy, we only keep data that we legally have to hold on you. So therefore, we've done that bit as well. Or if they're an ex-client, you don't need to hold it. You can say, actually, yes, we've destroyed all your documentation as well. So that covers that bit. The audit trail is in the background. It happens, etc. The security and encryption is to do with obviously the portal, but also the security, the principle of least privilege and privacy by design is from when the document hits Virtual Cabinet all the way through to when you destroy it. You've got your security set up in place. So I think we've covered quite a lot of the information there. There has been a whole lot of people asking about Portal, so I will do a separate one on Portal. So this is the first, shall I say, large webinar that I've done for everyone. Thank you all very much for your interest. From the other ones we've done and from the kind of visits we've done with clients, etc., I've pulled up the top, I don't know, there's 5 or 6 on there, bits and pieces that people have asked us to do. If you're interested in that, please do just write in the chat and say something like, document retention or auto profile of client, portal you've already written. If you do need to do imports, or if you do need to do that as well, please again just write import or whatever in that chat. We'll come back to you as well. The integration and automation. The integration isn't a key factor, but fully enough, I was just talking to a client, and this was yesterday, and they exactly on the Sage integration is why it was in my mind, why I use it as an example. They have a standard practice management system, and they haven't got Sage, which they use for their invoicing to their clients, integrated. And actually, the manager from the invoicing department, I don't know what you call him, he contacted me and said, well, why should we integrate with Sage? Well, what's the benefit? And it was funny. I was like, well, you've got the benefit of the rest of Virtual Cabinet. Why don't you use the benefit of that all your data is the same, etc., etc. And he quickly said, actually, yeah, that's the right thing to do. So if that's something you're interested in as well, let me know. And then I talked about workflow or tasks or audit and compliance, whatever you want to do for staff training and all that kind of stuff. Again, if you're interested in that, put it on there. I think the workflow tasks is probably also worthy of a separate webinar. I'm just going to jump to the 12 points again, and I'm going to have a quick look at the questions before I finish, just to see if I haven't missed anything that I can discuss. I wish that page would move. And I'll leave you with that. Have a read of that statistic while I just have a look at the things, at the questions. Okay, there is one question on the portal, a couple of questions people asked on the portal that I'll answer now briefly, if that's okay. So as I said, the portal does 3 things. Sorry for repeating myself, but it's always best to kind of let you know where I'm going. So one is you send documents to clients securely. One is send documents to clients securely and get electronic signature. And the third one is allow clients to send documents back to you. The first time the client ever uses the portal, I do not expect them to be able to send a document back to you, because it's a little bit tricky. And I will cover this better in a complete separate portal webinar. What you can do is the client can log into the portal and they can send a document back to you. There's a drop-down list, and there's a compose button. They hit compose, grab the drop-down list. Whoever sent them a document, they can send a document back to them. So if I've sent a document to them, they can send it back to me, and literally when they click compose and upload, it goes onto the local PC, and they can go and surf on their servers or wherever they keep their document and send the documents back to you. The other thing you can do is you can grab a document and publish to them, and there's 2 ticks. One is for signature, and the other one is a little red arrow, and it's the tick to say send the document back to me. And in fact, if I go to my portal slide, sorry, I'm going to do this kind of the worst way, which is just click through all the buttons. Do you see this little red arrow here? If you tick that, when the client reads the document, it actually there's a little button on the at the top, like sign and decline, but it says reply. If they hit that, that allows them to jump onto the local PC, grab as many documents they want, and send it back to them. I'll show you when I do the portal demo. I'll show you a nice little trick on that as well, to be able to do it. So that's a couple of ways they can send you the documents back. Okay, I'll answer some more questions at the portal, no problem. There is no, the way our portal pricing and structure is set up is we charge you per license, okay, so per portal publisher. That license allows you to publish to unlimited amount of clients, unlimited amount of documents, so there's no restriction on that whatsoever. So your fee is fixed and you know what the costs will be regardless of how much you use the portal. The limit is we give you 1 gigabyte free of space on the portal, and I have a rule of thumb. I did a calculation ages ago and I always use it and it works quite well. A 20 user client publishing heavily and not retracting anything, so everything they publish leaving the portal, will take about 2 years to fill up a gigabyte of space. Standard business practice. I'm sure there's people out there that can break that trend, but that's roughly what it is. If you put your retraction policy in place, you'll never fill up that gigabyte of space. And then the final part on that is, I always get this wrong, it's 100 megabytes per document. I think I'm right. It's 100 something. It must be megabytes. So it's 100 megabytes per document. So if the documents are larger than that, the portal can't handle it. The only thing that catches us would be probably something like a Sage backup. They can be larger than 100 megabytes. So that's per document. Doesn't matter how many to do. Sorry, I don't want to get bogged down in the portal, but I did see a few of those questions, etc. So I'll come on to that, as I said, separately. Right, let me find the last, did I find the last slide? I'm going to go manually through it again. It's really annoying when people do that. I hate it, but I'm just doing it now. My kind of final message on virtual cabinet, etc., is there is a lot of fear out there. Compliance is always rubbish because it's forced upon us and we have to do it. But it's a really interesting statistic from Deloitte, and I think this is right as well. If you can say to your clients, we handle your data seriously, we are GDPR compliant, we always have been, we've got document retention policies in place, we have a way of ensuring your security, etc. I think that sets you up a very, very strong message to your client base. And I think people who don't have that strong message and who are not basically on this call, I think it will harm them as such, and I think it will benefit people who do it. So we shouldn't focus this as a terrible thing, even though it is a bit of a pain. I think we should focus on it that it's a positive thing, and it's a positive for us moving forward. You see, I got to the last slide eventually. That's the last slide. That's my email address, my phone number for office, my mobile. Don't all start ringing it now, please. I do need a coffee. Yes, we do integrate with Sage Payroll. Who's that? Lorraine? Sorry, I've actually name checked. I promised myself I wouldn't name check anyone, because if I do, then other people will feel left out. But we do integrate with Sage as well. And there's a lot of stuff we can do. We can do. Okay, that's it. I am finished. I'm going to stop talking. Thank you all very much for your participation. If you do have any comments, positive or negative, about this, please stick them on the chat or drop me an email. I want to make this as focused and as clear as I can to you guys. If it's not right, let me know. If there's other bits you were expecting to see, let me know, etc. If you wanted more detail, less detail, I've tried to keep it to an hour, which I'm just about right, and I've tried to keep the information as focused as possible, but obviously with these things it's always a little bit difficult. Okay, I'm going to leave I'm going to leave the webinar open for about another 5 minutes. If anyone wants to stick anything else on chat. Thanks all very much for your time, and I'm going to stop talking now. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye-bye.